Jason Belmonte has been one of the best bowlers in the game for many years, and many would argue that he will go down as the greatest of all time once his career comes to an end. He certainly has changed the game of bowling forever, with his two-handed style sweeping the world. Of course, there were two-handed bowlers before Belmonte, but his success really did spark a huge shift which has resulted in an enormous increase in two-handed bowlers. His list of achievements is already staggering. He currently holds 30 PBA Tour titles with a record-breaking 14 majors. That's 4 more than both Pete Webber and Earl Anthony, who both have won 10 majors each, placing them second on the list. He is one of only 8 bowlers in PBA history to achieve 30 wins, and he's also one of the only 2 bowlers to have won the Super Slam, winning all 5 PBA major titles, and the other bowler to achieve this was Mike Albee. He has been named PBA Player of the Year 7 times, tying the record previously set by Walter Ray Williams Jr., and he has accumulated $1 million in career PBA earnings faster than any other player in history, and even eclipsed the $2 million mark in PBA earnings during the 2022 season. It seems incredible that not only has Belmonte managed to achieve all this, but that he has many years left in his prime. At 39 years of age, he still has plenty of time to increase his already very long list of PBA titles and achievements. So the question we're going to try and answer today is, how many PBA titles will Jason Belmonte win by the end of his career? Belmo won his first ever PBA tournament in March 2009 at the Bowling Foundation Long Island Classic, where he beat Mike Fagan 215 to 201. He would not win his next title for another 2 years, but it was certainly worth the wait, as he won 3 titles in 2 days during the 2011 World Series of Bowling. However, it was really from 2013 that Belmo took things to another level and started winning an insane amount of majors. He pretty much dominated the tour from 2013 until 2020. Of course, we all know what happened in 2020, and being Australian, it had a bit of an impact on Belmonte with all the travel restrictions and of course the very strict lockdowns that they had in Australia during this period. So it wasn't until 2022 that Belmo started to win again. But just in case we had all forgotten how good he is, he came back with arguably his best season ever and won a total of 5 events during 2022 alone. His last win was in June 2022 at the PBA Tour Finals, where he defeated Englishman Dom Barrett and took his total number of titles to around 30. Clearly Belmonte isn't satisfied with this number and has his eyes set on beating Walter Ray's record of 47 titles. He certainly has a chance to achieve this, but it will definitely require a few things to happen during the next few years. Belmonte is currently tied for 7th on the list with Dick Webber, and he has a few other legends he needs to surpass before he reaches Walter Ray. Even reaching 40 titles is no easy task, as only 3 bowlers in history have reached this mark: Norm Duke, Earl Anthony and of course Walter Ray. So let us take a look at exactly what Belmonte needs to do to become the top title winner in PBA history. And just before we continue, I'd like to mention that this is a brand new bowling channel. I'm trying to grow this channel and reach as many bowling fans as possible, so if you have enjoyed this video so far, I'd really appreciate it if you could go ahead and click the subscribe button below. If we start from his first win in 2009 until the end of 2022, Belmonte is currently averaging over 2 PBA titles per year. As we mentioned, there was obviously some time lost during the pandemic. During his early years on tour, his win rate wasn't anywhere near as high. So what if we take a look just at the years that he was at his peak? I would consider this to be at the start of 2011, and if we remove the years 2022 and 2021, and let's include 2022 in there as well, so that's 10 years that we will include where I would consider Belmo to be at his peak. During these selected 10 years, his win rate jumps to almost 3 titles per year. So all he needs to do is carry on with this current win rate and he will surpass Walter Ray's record by the end of 2029. Easy, right? Well, unfortunately not. No matter how good you are, there are always going to be ups and downs in your career, and we can actually see this right now. After his blistering season in 2022, where he won 5 PBA titles, 2023 has not been so kind to Belmo so far. He's yet to make a live telecast, let alone win a title. And we will have to wait and see how the rest of the season pans out. We've seen many of the greats go as long as 3 years without winning. The competition on the tour is so fierce, it doesn't take much for a title drought to take hold. This can dent the confidence of even the greatest bowlers, and once you're in that hole, it can be pretty hard to drag yourself out. So we have to assume that from now until the end of Belmonte's career, that there's going to be quite a few downs, although of course there will be many ups too. So let us be a little bit more conservative and suggest that Belmonte continues with a pace of 2 titles per year. This would mean he would need another 9 years to break Walter Ray's record. The problem is, Belmonte will be 40 years old at the end of this July, so by keeping this pace of 2 titles a year, he would be 49 years of age and will likely be winding down his career by the time he breaks Walter Ray's record if he kept at this pace. Bowling is quite strange when it comes to the ages of successful bowlers. Clearly, most bowlers have most of their success during their late 20s and early 30s. When you look back at all of the careers of the greats in recent years, such as Norm Duke, Pete Webber, Chris Barnes, Parker Bone III, etc., all of these players, they seem to have reached the dominant phase of their career by their sort of late 30s. This is of course extremely unusual in sports, as most players start to decline in their early 30s, and hardly any players are still even playing at 40, let alone being in their prime. But again, the proof is there when you look at the careers of the top players on the PBA Tour, that they seem to hit this prime around their late 30s, and it can often last until 43 or even 44. Of course, I'm generalising slightly here, and these age ranges will vary from player to player. We are assuming that the bowler in question remains relatively healthy and injury free. So while top bowlers can definitely remain very competitive into their late 30s and early 40s sometimes as well, by their mid 40s, this is normally when a big decline starts to take place. We've seen players like Norm Duke and Walter Ray win at even 50 years of age, but this is not the norm. So going back to Belmonte, realistically I'd say he only has 4 or 5 years at his peak. But another interesting point we have to address is the fact that we don't know how being two-handed will affect Belmonte in the later stages of his career. We don't really have another bowler to compare Belmonte to. Belmo is going to be the test here, the test at how well two-handed bowling holds up once you hit 40 and above. I'm not a two-handed bowler myself, so I wouldn't like to comment too much on this, to be honest with you, but part of me thinks that it will be harder to maintain, because to me it seems like the two-handed approach would be quite taxing on the body. But then again, you could make the same argument about someone like EJ Tackett. With his speed and rev rate, realistically, is he going to be able to maintain this into his 40s? It might be that Belmonte is able to adapt his game as he gets older, and it could even be that the two-handed style will be beneficial to him in the later stages of his career. But in the end, Father Time will always remain undefeated, and he will start to decline in the next several years. So to answer the question of this video, how many PBA titles will Belmonte actually win? Well, I don't think he will realistically keep up the yearly win rate to surpass Walter Ray. He would have to go on an absolute tear during the next 2 or 3 years and have seasons like he did in 2022 to stand a chance. Ultimately, if I had to put a number on it, I would predict that he will reach 42 titles, surpassing Norm Duke to reach 3rd on the list, but not quite beating Earl Anthony's number of 43 or Walter Ray's record of 47. So that brings us to an end for today's video. I'd love to hear your thoughts. How many titles do you think Belmonte will win by the end of his career? And do you think he will surpass Walter Ray and win the most titles in PBA history? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below, and if you've enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate it if you'd like and subscribe to the channel. Finally, make sure to save this video so we can look back in 20 years and see if this prediction was correct.